If these allegations are proven true or not, Vince McMahon is done. Possibly the name of McMahon will never ever be spoken in a positive light again. But here's the other problem. It's not just how it affects him, it's how it filters down throughout the WWE, who knew what, who knew when, etc, etc, etc. And that could be the ultimate nail in the coffin for everything that we know and love about wrestling. Okay, and we're back. Welcome back to Creative Business Made Simple, folks. The only show that helps you get from where you are to where you want to be in your business and beyond. Today we are talking about the Vince McMahon sexual trafficking story that is going on. We're looking at it from a business point of view, but also from a psychological point of view as well, because there are a number of lessons that you can really learn in this story and as it's unfolding. So we've already looked at, if you're a multi-billionaire businessman, it is not wise for you to be conducting personal meetings in the confines of your own apartment. Again, if you're looking to employ someone, I would suggest that you do it in a business setting if you own a business premises, or that you have multiple people in on the meeting. To protect yourself, it protects those who are your potential employees. It also protects your company. It means nobody can come back and say, well, you said this, you said that, because you have witnesses. We've also been looking at different conducts and things, and if you are a multi-billionaire and you are conducting yourself in a way where you are sending inappropriate sexual text messages, where you are conducting yourself in a mentally deprived teenage boy, way, then I think you need to have people around you, or you need, and you're aware of this, I think you need to have specialized help, because this is not normal behavior. And in the case of Vince McMahon, this is not normal behavior. Jim Cornette said it himself that he worked with McMahon from 93 to 99. That I know to be factually correct. And he said he could never imagine anyone of McMahon at any point in time, going along with this stuff. The problem is, as well, is if this was a one-time thing, and I think this sort of goes on to our next point about repetitive behavior. So as a one-time thing, you could look at this and say, okay, could this person just be after McMahon for his money? There's no smoke without fire. The fact that she has text messages, the fact that she has times, dates, places, people, the evidence is stacking up. I mean, the evidence against McMahon is insurmountable. Professionally, I think McMahon is absolutely done. Now, he may find a way to come back out of all of this. He has said that, look, I will defend myself, I will do this, that, and the other. The reason that I bring it up, if it was a one-time thing, you could sort of put a question mark above it, or certainly have a little bit of a, okay, But the fact that McMahon was... This isn't the first time, okay? For those of you who don't follow wrestling, there was a scandal that happened in 1992 where a young boy, ring boy, was sexually assaulted and molested, and apparently McMahon said, if you do not have homosexual sex, it looks like it was with Pat Patterson, who was a former a wrestling official, one of the greatest minds, in the wrestling business. But if you don't have gay sex with Pat Patterson, you can't keep your job. That's what this guy was saying. McMahon denied that, and there was all sorts of sex scandals, allegations that went on for a number of years after that. McMahon, to the best of my knowledge, was acquitted of it. But the fact that this has happened again and again and again, the latest being this young lady that's potentially between 21 and in her 40s. There was another case of Rita Chatterton, who this apparently is still an ongoing investigation. There's been a number of different things. So the whole thing about it is obviously people think in patterns. They don't think logically. If this has been going on a number of different times, and McMahon has been accused personally a number of different times, there's also, the merit and the conversation to be had, and merit in the conversation to be had about the amount of payoffs that female WWE talent has had over the years. The amount of times that McMahon has shifted money from personal funds to cover up things. The reason that this case is coming out with this young lady is because McMahon shifted. There was a $12 million shift in a personal account that happened in 2022. X amount went to one person for an NDA, non-disclosure, and then the $3 million went to this lady, I'm assuming, and the reason that this came about is because he or whoever was involved stopped paying the amount, and this was meant to be paid over 5 years, and that's why this has all come about. So the fact that this is, again, they often say there's no smoke without fire. The fact that it's been brought up again and again and again and time again, it gets to a point where it's like, okay, there's definitely something that's gone on. We look at it from a sort of a personality profile. McMahon, late 70s, is no longer with his wife, Linda. Probably hasn't been for a long time. Eric Bischoff, during his tour in Glasgow, had said very openly that Vince McMahon was effing everything with a heartbeat, or everything with a pulse. That's a direct quote. You genuinely are like, okay, wow, okay, again, even trying to get my head around this. So personality profile, obviously, Vince, and they often say people that are extremely successful in business have a very high sex sort of personality about them. And Vince McMahon quite clearly fits that mold, fits that bill. They have a high sex energy. Was it a case that he was losing power in his business? He was getting too old. His business had been bought over, even though he was still the majority shareholder. All ideas went through McMahon, and he literally, again, if like we talked about, alluded earlier on, was it a pornography sort of conditioning that had gone there? Because there is some really sick forms of pornography that's out there. Even on his television show on WWE Raw, WWE SmackDown, McMahon had talent, particularly female talent, behave in what I would consider deplorable ways. He defended it by saying that they would not do anything that they were not comfortable with. You can be very, very comfortable with a massive paycheck, but equally, if you are told, look, if you don't do this, and positions have been cut before because of this kind of stuff, not just in WWE, I gotta stress that, not just in the world of wrestling, but in other professions as well. So it's really important to again, sort of clarify all of this. So you kind of look at that, and there was, again, looking at WWE programming, there was things that Vince did that you think, again, having wrestling altercations with his daughter, having even storylines, down to, again, my dear friend Eric Bischoff, on TV romances, and all sorts of things, and he even said it himself, he wasn't comfortable with it. He point blank put his foot down. There was other people that had very uncomfortable sort of, relationships on air with people that went disastrously wrong. Again, WWE is not the only organization. They are telling a television story. But you gotta wonder, from a television story point of view, how far down that goes. Again, we're getting off point. We're not dealing with facts here, but it does throw up some very interesting conversations for sure. That happened. So the personality profile of the young girl, allegedly, so according to my notes, she's between 21. Some people have said up to 40. Basically, she, in Jim Cornette's words, is a young girl. Or a young woman, I think that's a better way of putting it. A young woman that is going through a really difficult time. She hasn't got a job. She needs money. She works at, or she lives in an apartment complex that is quite pricey, especially in Connecticut, which I'm assuming is where they still are. Her parents have just died, and she needs money. She's been told by somebody that she trusts within the apartment complex to go and speak to Vince McMahon, and she's done that. So that's really where we're at with regards to that. It's tragic. It really is tragic, the fact that this is going on. Our next point, obviously, is it really comes down to... In fact, before we move on to that, so I want to finish the point regarding porn conditioning. So basically, porn conditioning is your brain floods with dopamine when you are watching pornography. It makes you think that you are feeling great and you're feeling wonderful, and that's how you get off. The problem is that the brain doesn't know the difference between, right and wrong, if I can be so loose in using that phrase. And the reason that I say that is because you could be watching pornography that is immensely harmful, but because you have had an orgasm, essentially, you came, you did everything, your brain registers that as, oh wow, you felt amazing when you were watching that. So again, that should be, your brain doesn't think in, oh well, this isn't, this is the law, or this could get you in prison, or this could get you in trouble. Your brain thinks, I want to flood you with feel-good chemicals, okay? And that's ultimately what happens. Now, if you are into bestiality, for example, where you enjoy watching people have sex with animals, and you get off on that, your brain is registering in your flooding your body full of dopamine and saying, you like that, so you go back to it, and you go back to it again, and you go back to it again. How do we know that McMahon... And the reason I bring this up is because this is stereotypical behavior here. Of somebody who has been conditioned by pornography. How do we know that McMahon, didn't find a kink where scat, which is a form of sexual pleasure, where basically people defecate, and that is a form of, basically, yeah, go on, but I really should have even talked about this stuff, but it is a kink, basically. There's a number of different ones out there. 3 ways, or 4 ways, gang rape. Basically, if you can think of the most extreme, sick, perverted things that are out there, literally, it's on the internet. How do we know that McMahon, wasn't behaving in that way? Did he just conjure this up? I don't believe so. Based on all the years that I've been a psychologist in training, based on all the psychology stuff that I've read, that I've looked at, the case studies, the people that I've worked with, this isn't just coming off, Johnny-come-lately kind of, sort of just throwing in layman's terms on my 2 cents. It is literally someone who's studied this stuff for about 15 to 20 years. I don't know. In all honesty, I would love to categorically say, yes, I think that was a factor. Without speaking to McMahon directly or people that knew him directly, I can't comment. I really can't. But I raise that as an interesting point of view. The other thing is as well, and the reason that I bring this up is because a conversation I was having with someone the other day, some things years ago were considered flirtatious or fun in their acts. But this, taking a dump on somebody's head, 3 ways, pimping somebody out across state lines, which is illegal in the United States, it's just borderline. It's not even borderline. It is an evil act. The issue could be for McMahon to come back and say that, she was into it, which then you have to prove. Obviously, if she's raising these points... There's 2 sort of schools of thought of that. Either she's raising it because she wasn't into it or because the money stopped coming in. Both of those. And people, will comment on this, I'm sure, and say, well, how could you say that? How could you say that? Again, I'm dealing with the facts. The golden rule with anything like this is you have to take the emotion out of it. Okay? So that is crucially important. As we move forward into our next point, just before we take our next break, because I know this is a lot of information, and it's well, we've got notes here. It's unscripted, so this is literally as it's coming to me. It's not just a case of McMahon being implemented, and that brings us to our next business point. If you are in business on a massive global corporate scale, then you have to think about the other people that this impacts. So again, we talked about this right at the beginning of the show. At the top, you've got Vince McMahon. It filters down professionally to his board of directors. Now we know Triple H, Paul Levesque, Stephanie McMahon, who is the wife of Paul Levesque, Tony Khan, who's in there. Those are sort of your main players. There are other people there, of course, but it also filters down into other employees. Bruce Pritchard, who has been a long-time supporter of McMahon, and colleague of McMahon. Kevin Dunn's name has been brought into this. Jim Cornette's name was brought into this, even though he has nothing to do with the WWE now. I think anybody that's associated with wrestling, but then it filters down into your talent, your top talent, down and down and down and down. What is apparent, and this, unfortunately, I would say is almost, it's beyond words, quite frankly, what I'm about to say, because people within the WWE knew that this was going on. They knew that this was going on in one form or another. The question is, who knew? Who knew? What did they know? When did they know it? And ultimately, what did they do? So did the top board know? Now, Tony Khan bought over or went into business with McMahon. I think it was last year or the year before. You know, did he know? I guarantee you he didn't. What business implications that has is massive. Because this doesn't just affect McMahon, this affects the whole WWE, your talent, your board of directors, your shareholders, you know, all of these different people. Anybody who's got anything to do with WWE can be impacted. And as Eric Bischoff said the other day, you know, it's still raw. I mean, the poor guy was absolutely cut up about it. You know, and I have to stress that, you know, he was cut up about it. He was deeply emotional, deeply upset about everything that was going on. He physically was sickened by what had gone on. The question is as well, it's not just professionally who this affects, but McMahon has children in Shane and Stephanie. Shane and Stephanie have children, McMahon's grandchildren. Some that are in college, some that are in school. Brock Lesnar, if it's proven, has a daughter. John Laurinaitis has family. You know, there's a lot of people that are impacted here. The families of people in WWE. It's a massive thing. It filters down. And that is the lesson. We'll talk about this when we come back from break. But that is the lesson that I want to stress to you right now, that when you go into business, your conduct matters more than just you. If it is just you that is, you know, messing about and doing stupid stuff, and you're a single guy, you're a single girl, whatever, you know, and all of that kind of stuff, you know, it's only you that it impacts. Perhaps your business. But when you've got a family, when you've got children, when you've got grandchildren, it impacts all of them. And we'll talk about that more when we come back from break.